458 Spider is powered by a 4.5-liter V8. It can hit 62 miles an hour in less than 3.5 seconds and reach the top speed of over 198 miles per hour.
Well, that sounds really good. I'm more of a Porsche guy myself, but...
Dr. Friedman, Porsches are not as cool as Ferraris.
Ollie, can you take that Ferrari out to the waiting room? We need to talk to Dr. Freeman.
Drive carefully. It's a zoo out there, okay? Well, he's certainly high energy, but his blood pressure is normal, and the test came back negative for any kind of thyroid issues. So I can't find any physical triggers for hyperactivity.
So you think he's ADHD, just like Brian?
It could be. How is Brian?
He just got into Stanford.
What? Congratulations! You got to give him a high five for me. Although he's 18, he probably doesn't want a high five from his pediatrician.
Dr. Freeman, if Ollie has it too, we would like to treat it as early and as aggressively as possible.
I don't know. I mean, the way he was rattling those stats off about that car, it doesn't sound like a kid that's having trouble focusing. And if he's just a little bit hyper, you know, I was hyper when I was a kid.
Respectfully, Dr. Freeman, we've been through this before.
ADHD runs in the family, and the medication really helped Brian.
Yeah, I mean, Brian was a little bit older when we diagnosed him.
Ollie is having tantrums. He's throwing fits.
Okay. I just don't want to jump the gun, but there are some other tests we can run. My associate, who's a therapist, Dr. Sheldon Wallace, could probably see you today.
Great, thank you.
Drive, I'm about to get 3 stars on every level.
Wow, it's very impressive. How are your grades in school?
Bad. I got a B in English. 3 stars!
A B is bad?
Tell Dr. Wallace how hard it is for you to do your homework alone.
Mom and Dad always help me on my homework because it takes me too long on my own.
And you can't sit still during reading time at school, right?
When can we go home?
May I speak with Ollie privately?
I don't see why that's necessary.
He's 8 and he's perfectly well adjusted. He doesn't need therapy.
Well, if he's perfectly well adjusted, then why are you here?
He's hyperactive.
It would help me to assess him if I could have a few moments with him.
He's a young boy. You're a man we're just meeting. We're not going to leave him alone with you.
Okay, I understand that. Why don't we make an appointment for him to take some diagnostic tests? And if you give me the name and number of his teacher, I'll speak with her and have her complete some diagnostic inventories, and we'll get back to you.
We didn't have to go through all of that when Brian was diagnosed.
Our diagnostic approach has changed in the last decade as we've come to better understand the disorder. And most people think that's a good thing. Prescribing any drug for a child is not something that should be taken lightly.
Okay, well, thank you for your time and your somewhat startling condescension.
Mrs. Graham.
We are good parents. Our oldest son is headed to Stanford, and Ollie is on the honor roll at school, and that's not because we're running around getting prescriptions for drugs that our kids don't need. So thank you for your time. Come, sweetie. But we'll be finding a new doctor.
Thank you.
A decade before Ollie was born. That's how long I've been treating this family. And 5 minutes with you and they're running for the door.
You shouldn't have sent them to me if all you're looking for was a rubber stamp.
I was looking for a second opinion about the meds, not some kind of judgment about their parenting. I mean, granted, Rosie is a bit of a tiger mom, and that can be off-putting, but it's not uncommon.
I don't think I got the whole story. Ollie is a little bit hyperactive, but he doesn't seem like he can't focus. And his answers seem coached, you know, to put it mildly. The whole thing was odd.
What? Parents coached a kid so he could score ADHD drugs?
So says Sheldon. I mean, these are good parents. I've known them a long time. They're good people.
Good people make terrible decisions every day. My field is pretty much based on that.
Doesn't surprise me. The diagnosis of ADHD is epidemic in this country.
We all know the hysteria, Pete, but that doesn't mean it's not real, and it doesn't mean that Ollie's faking it or was coached.
Okay, maybe these kids are unfocused because we're pumping them full of caffeine and sugar and preservatives. We should look at diet and exercise before we just write them a script for speed.
ADHD drugs can be very effective, but they have to be used sparingly and only in clear-cut cases. I just don't see that here.
Yeah, and if Sheldon is right, the parents are coaching their kid to get drugs, it's child abuse.
Dear Dr. Shears, my son is 10 years old and has been on medication for ADHD for about a year, and I worry about it stunning his growth. Is it okay to take a break from the meds over the weekends or holidays when he is out of school?
Oh, that's really interesting. Actually, 2 really good questions in there. But first, a quick update on our understanding of ADHD. We used to kind of not really understand why kids are getting this. We thought maybe it was a difference in brain chemistry, but we've actually identified some structural differences in kids and adults that have ADHD versus kids that don't. And it's in this prefrontal cortex here. It's the part of the brain that controls actions and thoughts. And it's actually a little less active, a little smaller in people with ADHD. And that's kind of why they are easily distracted. And especially the actions controlling part of this the brain, it leads to a lot of the hyperactivity and the acting out and the misbehavior. So we still don't know why this part of the brain is smaller, but we're moving in that direction to understanding this a little better.
Do you think we're moving to a place where there's actually a test we could do to determine, your brain is structurally consistent with ADHD? Because so much, much now is it's a subjective call by a doctor.
A lot of guessing, because sometimes it could be just lack of sleep and not ADHD at all. But yeah, we're seeing this in MRIs and even brain scans. Functional brain scans can show the differences there.
Before we talk about drug holidays, what about medicine stunning growth?
Stunning growth, that's a big, big concern. A lot of studies do show that, yes, these medications will stunt your growth. And the most recent study looked at kids that have been on this for about 2 to 3 years. And we found that those kids are about an inch shorter and about 5 pounds lighter than a kid that would not be on these medications. We do know these are stimulant medications, and stimulants do curb your appetite. So maybe there's a bit of low-grade malnutrition going on, or it's possible these medications block some of the growth factors in the brain. Some people wonder, well, maybe it's the ADHD itself that causes the growth, but kids that have ADHD that aren't all the medications don't get that stunting.
Certainly one important thing is for parents out there who are trying to get their kids these medicines, maybe to do better in school just because.
Yeah.
That's a good reason not to. Taking a drug, quote-unquote, vacation from any medicine that is prescribed to you, discuss it with your doctor before you do it. Now, we're talking explicitly right now about ADHD medications.
There are 2 categories of ADHD medications. There's the stimulants and the non-stimulants. The stimulants work very quickly. They get in your system, and then they wear off very quickly, too. And those are the medications I love to have kids take a drug vacation. If they have a day off of school, on weekends, certainly during the summer, yes, get off those medications to try to avoid some of those negative side effects and some of the long-term effects that we don't really fully understand.
So drug holiday, talk it over with your doc if your kid is on ADHD medicine.
Now, when we're talking about these medications, there's a lot we don't know about the medications. So I cannot stress enough to parents, you got to make sure you're doing all the other things that are important and are even more important for treating ADHD. Over 5 million kids diagnosed with ADHD, 8 million adults diagnosed at one point. So that's a lot of medication being circulated out there, and it is a problem because the DEA, has to release some amphetamine to the drug manufacturers to make this, but they don't want too much of it out there because if there's a lot of stockpiles, then it's easier for that to get into the wrong hands.
Yeah. And Jim, your specialty, I mean, you're in the front lines when it comes to making that call, evaluating kids at that age. Yeah. Is it being overdiagnosed?
Oh, without a doubt. A lot of the times, this is diagnosed in just one quick appointment. Doctor, I'm having a hard time paying attention. I think I have ADHD. Okay, well, what are your symptoms? I can't pay attention. Okay, well, here's your prescription.
You think doctors are pressured by parents?
Again, looking for that
there's a lot of
fix.
pressure. The kids, oftentimes their grades aren't doing well, and there's a lot of pressure to succeed in school, and they want the quick fix.
But it's probably not in their best interest.
Yeah, and it's not because there's side effects. There's stunted growth, appetite suppression, depression in kids even, and we really don't know the long-term effects of this. You can't just diagnose this in one quick appointment. There's got to be kind of a multi-faceted approach to this.